War is afoot.
House of the Dragon takes us back to the land of fire and blood for a story set 200 years before the events of Game of Thrones. House of the Dragon is the story of the Targaryen dynasty and is based on George R.R. Martin's hefty Fire and Blood novel. It's a story about a family at war, a story about dragons, and a story about tragedy. It has the same landscape, the same inspiration, and similar tones to Game of Thrones, but it's also its own show with a different story to tell. Game of Thrones spin-off House of the Dragon airs weekly on Sky Atlantic with Now. Here are 10 surprising facts about the making of the prequel series. It wasn't the first Game of Thrones spin-off idea. Way back in 2018, plans for a Game of Thrones successor series began with a show titled Blood Moon. However, George R.R. Martin had little involvement in the series. It was based on a time period mentioned only in passing in his books, and when the pilot was finished, HBO opted not to make it into a series. House of the Dragon showrunner Ryan Condal thinks that the lengthy process of choosing the first Game of Thrones spin-off show was worth the wait. More Game of Thrones spin-off series are coming. It might not be on the scale of the Marvel Universe quite yet, but if you loved Game of Thrones, it looks like there should be plenty of successor shows coming in the next 5 years. HBO have started work on a series based on the adventures of Jon Snow, Kit Harington, set after Game of Thrones ends. If you like fantasy TV shows, you're in luck. House of the Dragon is based on the true story of the English Civil War, the Anarchy. Talking to fans at Comic-Con 2022, George R.R. Martin explained how House of the Dragon was inspired by real events that took place in the 12th century. George R.R. Martin thinks the series has made improvements on his book. Martin has watched 9 episodes out of the 10 from House of the Dragon Season 1, and the series have been given a double thumbs up from the Thrones mastermind.
I've seen 9 of the 10 episodes, and it's pretty amazing.
He even believes that the show has made some improvements on his book with the character of King Viserys, played by Paddy Considine. Births are the new weddings. If weddings were a signal to Game of Thrones fans that something dramatic was around the corner, births have a similar impact in House of the Dragon. Talking about their significance in the show, director Miguel Sapochnik told The Hollywood Reporter, "In medieval times, giving birth was violence. There are 17 dragons. We're at the height of the Targaryen rule, which means dragons galore. And no expense or effort has been spared on giving these creatures their own looks and personalities. There are 17 of them at the height of this. It's important to differentiate them, and it was one of the earliest things we started concepting on. They built out from Syrax and Caraxes, and Viagar, the biggest dragon alive right now. They have designed dragons you won't even see in Season 1. There's much yet to come." How do they ride the dragons? We've all seen footage of actors interacting with green screens over the years, but what happens when you actually have to ride a non-existent dragon? Millie Alcock, who plays the young Princess Rhaenyra Targaryen, explained to fans at Comic-Con that it's quite an unusual experience. Steve Toussaint couldn't care less about casting response. It wouldn't be 2022 without a bit of a furor about casting for a major TV show, and when it was revealed that Steve Toussaint would play Corlys Velaryon, some closed-minded fans got the hump. On social media, Toussaint faced a sadly predictable and unpleasant response from those who didn't believe a black man should be in the House of Velaryon. The wigs and costumes aren't easy work for the cast. The famous Targaryen long white hair meant that a large number of the cast had to sport wigs during their time on set. A self-confessed fidget, Matt Smith joked that it would be the one thing he would change on the show if he had the powers as the ruler of Westeros. They filmed the wedding of Alicent and Viserys, but it was cut from the show. Tanya Tayatiambo Kuwer, a hairstylist and makeup artist on House of the Dragon, revealed on her Instagram page that not only were there originally plans for King Viserys' wedding to Alicent Hightower to make it to screen, they actually filmed the scenes. The wedding was cut from the show, presumably due to time constraints. It means we never got to see Emily Carey with an incredible hair, tiara, and wedding dress combo on screen.